everyone, and welcome back. Feels so surreal being here. Can't believe it's already 2021. We're in spring semester, but we're super excited that you're here with us this evening here at Real Life. Before we get started, we're going to get things kicked off with some worship from Sydney. Sydney, thank you so much for just leading us in that time of worship. Welcome back, guys. It is just, I cannot believe we're already back here. It's January. I'm going into my last semester ever of college. That makes me half sick, half excited. Don't even know where I'm at. But as I said, my name's Gracie, and I'm going to be the host for Real Life. So super excited to have you here with us this evening, spending time with us. If this is your first time here tonight, welcome. We're so happy that you're here. Real Life is the weekly meeting of Crew at Ohio State. It's a place where students bring students to learn more about God, who he says we are, and how that impacts our lives. So if this is your first time, we're glad you're here. My break felt kind of like all over the place at times. It was really a good time to get some rest and catch up on some sleep that I really hadn't had all semester. But there was a lot of stuff happening just in our country that was weighing on me a lot. And so I was really excited to just come back to campus and have a schedule again. So no matter where you're at this evening, if your break was refreshing and you're feeling energized tonight, or if break really wasn't a break at all for you and you're kind of feeling heavy like so many of us are right now with everything that's going on and everything that we're seeing on the news, we're just happy that you're here in this space with us tonight. We're happy that you're choosing to spend some time together and with God tonight. And so, no matter what, we're just glad that you're here. So here at Real Life, we love to hear from students in our movement and just, hear about their stories, what God has done in their life. And so tonight we're going to be hearing from one of my very good friends, Sade.
The beginning of the fall semester was very overwhelming to me. I had always anticipated my senior year to be one of the easiest years in college, but it turned out to be the exact opposite. The day before classes began, my grandmother passed away and I had to fly home to attend the funeral. When I returned back to Columbus, I immediately dove right back into classes. I felt immense pressure to not let my family down, and especially not my grandmother now that she wouldn't be able to physically see me graduate. I usually consider myself a good student and make good grades, but specifically one class this semester really challenged my view of myself. After my first exam in this class, I was angry at myself and felt inadequate. I became extremely anxious at even the name of the class and developed some of the worst test anxiety I have ever personally experienced. I felt so alone in this feeling of sadness over my classes and began to dislike myself. I began to call myself names and doubted every thought that came to my head. My tainted way of thinking began to spill over into my other classes, and my grades started to slip, not only in one class, but in all of them. This really crushed me because looking back, I can now see that I let academics define me. So to me, this meant I was nothing. I had lost my touch on academics, and it looked as if my world was crashing down. This not only affected my academic life, but began to spill over into my social and spiritual life. Community and spending time with God became more of a chore to me, and it felt as if spending time with others was getting in the way of me studying, and potentially causing me to do poorly in my class. Because of my performance in this class, I felt I needed to lock myself away and attempt to study, but this led to many sleepless nights and many tears. I was embarrassed in this way of thinking, but I knew I could no longer carry this burden alone. So I called my mother crying, and she assured me that I was not any of the things I thought of myself, but I had just lost my way. She reminded me that when I'm feeling my lowest, that's when I need to cling to God instead of running from Him. This opened my eyes to the fact that during this whole struggle with this class, I never brought this before God. I never even invited Him into my academic life. I began talking about this idea of bringing God alongside me in every aspect of my life with my mentor within Crew, and realized that this is something I have been missing in my life for a long time. Since coming to this realization, I now make sure to stay rooted in God even in the midst of my storm, and including Him in every aspect of my life. When I am faced with challenges, instead of thinking, how am I going to overcome them on my own, I now incorporate God into my thoughts. I begin to study scriptures and pray, and I try to maintain an active prayer life and to be honest with Him with what troubles me. I write down my stressors, and then I write down what God has said is true of me being His child, and also what is true of His character. Instead of being afraid to face the challenge head on, I invite God to walk with me through the challenge because with Him I cannot fail. I now understand that God is not limited to just one area of my life, but He wants to be included in all aspects of my life. The more I understand this, the closer I feel to God, and the more relaxed I feel about my schoolwork. I understand that God not only loves me when I'm doing well in school, but He also loves me when I may not be doing the best. While going through this battle last semester, a verse stuck with me throughout this entire time. Philippians 4:6-7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind in Christ Jesus." This verse reminds me that I do not have to carry the burden of any area of my life alone, but instead I can present it to God, and He will comfort me, and He's willing to carry me through. My name is Sade, and this is my real life story.
Sade, thank you so much for, sharing your story with all of us. It's a privilege to have you as a part of this movement. And I'm so lucky to call you one of my friends and get to do ministry beside you day to day. So thank you so much for your bravery and sharing your story with us. And we love you. So if this is your first time tonight, again, welcome. We're so excited that you're just, deciding to, spend your evening with us. Or maybe you've been kind of coming all of last semester and you're coming back and you're ready to take that next step and you want to get more involved. We would love to get you plugged in. So we have a survey for you tonight. You can fill that out. And we can get you plugged in with a small group, or you can ask some questions. So if you fill that out tonight, you're going to be entered into winning a $10 Amazon gift card, and we're going to announce the winner of that at the end of tonight's meeting. So I'll go ahead and give you a couple minutes, fill it out, and then I will meet you right back here for some more announcements. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to fill it out. We really want to just get you plugged in. So thank you for doing that. We have a couple announcements this evening. Very exciting things happening. So first off, if you're looking for a way to invest your summer in growing your faith, we would love to have you involved with one of Crew's summer missions. So these are 10-week long missions that take place in the summer. Big shocker there. And it's a really great opportunity to grow your faith, learn how to share your faith, meet other students who are in the movement. And it's just like a really awesome opportunity. And so every year we send students from Ohio State, Central State, Columbus State. And this year we're actually going to be going to Chicago and Ocean City, New Jersey. So you can check out our website for other places that they might be sending students, more information, or even check out that application and consider applying. So be sure to check that out. You don't want to miss out on that. Oh, man. So next up, guys, believe it or not, Winter Conference is coming up right around the corner. Typically, we gather in Indianapolis over the new year to come together for Winter Conference. But this year, we are going to be, coming together virtually on February 5th and 6th. And we're going to be using, it's not Zoom or anything like that. It's like a new platform that's going to allow us to engage more. So we're really excited to, just be rolling that out. And so when you go to sign up, you're going to be getting it's like a Winter Conference swag box. And I think they're going to pull up a picture of it, but I'm telling you guys, this box is worth way more money than what you're paying to register. There's a tumbler, a t-shirt, there's a book in there. There is so much good stuff in there. You do not want to miss out on that. And so if you want to have your swag box by the time that Winter Conference starts, make sure that you sign up today or by the end of tomorrow. So you'll be guaranteed to have your box by Winter Conference if you do that. So if you want to go and you want to register and you want to have that stuff, make sure that you go ahead and sign up as soon as possible. So tonight we are going to be starting our new semester-long series called The Songs of the People, A Journey Through the Psalms, which, you guessed it, we will be in the book of Psalms. And so we're really excited to get this ball rolling and just, kind of dive into these scriptures that are going to be picking at our emotions a little bit more maybe than last semester. And so tonight we're going to get things started, and we're going to be hearing from our director of Crew at Ohio State here, Bacho. But before we hear from Bacho, one of our people, Bailey, is going to be reading the scriptures for us.
Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. But the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction.
Well, good evening, friends. Bacho Borjazzi here. Welcome to Real Life one more time. We're so thrilled that you would join us here for our first actual Real Life on Thursday night of the spring semester. We're about to jump into a wonderful semester-long journey through the book of Psalms. Psalms has been absolutely significant and crucial in the life of the church. John Calvin referred to Psalms as the anatomy of every part of the human soul. Right here in these songs of the people, we have references to the whole gamut of emotions. That people coming in the presence of God in the midst of excitement, in the midst of exuberance, and yet also in the midst of pain, in the midst of struggle, in the midst of challenges. And Lord knows that we are in the midst of the moment where the racial wound is pulsating through this nation, COVID-19 is still with us, political tension is still on the rise. And friends, as we are living in the midst of this tumultuous period, we couldn't think of the better way to journey together as a movement than to bring our raw, our honest emotions, the totality of who we are, and be together and have opportunities to process. And I think we have a phenomenal journey ahead of us. And we begin our journey in Psalms. Psalms 1 and 2, the scholars tell us, they kind of almost function as a doorway into the book of Psalms. The Psalms portrays the whole world that God wants to paint for his people. And Psalm 1 and 2 are the entryway. So we begin with Psalm 1. So let me read it to you. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by the streams of water that yield its fruit in its season, and its leaves do not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. Right from the get-go, Psalms begins with the word blessed, or the Hebrew word ashrei, which sometimes is also translated as happy. But the real actual meaning of the word will be is how rewarding is the life of someone. And in a way, it's almost like it presents us with a kind of a life that would make the humans turn and say, like, wait, this is the life that is rewarding? Oswald Sanders puts it this way. He says, we tend to become like those we admire. You see, I understand that statement. Growing up in the Republic of Georgia, my favorite sport was soccer. You know, obviously, that's all you do. I had no idea about American football. Basketball was not really on the horizon. Georgia is too warm to play hockey, so we all played soccer. And my absolutely favorite Christmas gift one year was a ginormous wall-size photo of a soccer player by the name of Paolo Rossi. I mean, Paolo Rossi burst on the soccer scene during 1982 World Cup. Because there's all kinds of a turmoil in Italian soccer federation because of game fixing and all of that. Paolo Rossi was one of the players that actually ended up in jail, that he had just come out of the jail 6 months before the World Cup. And there was all kinds of controversy surrounding whether he should have been on that team or not. Was he physically even fit to play in this tournament? And in the quarterfinals, he just exploded on the international scene, scoring 3 times against Brazil and propelling them into the semifinals. And again, in the semifinals, he scores twice. And then in the final game, he scores one of the first goals against Germany, lifting Italy to their World Cup championship and him winning the Golden Boot as the most goals scored in that tournament. And the picture of Rossi with his victory hands raised was plastering my bedroom wall. Fast forward years later, I had passed on my love of soccer on to my kids. And both Paul and Danny played for the same soccer club. And during the summers, the club leaders and coaches would invite some of the more promising or skilled soccer players for intensive summer training. And they would bring all these kids from around the world that were relationally connected with, who were older, who they would be training with. And during the summer, one of the summers, Danny got to train with some of the most elite soccer players around. And during every practice, like, he would take pictures with 4 of his favorite guys. And eventually we'll put together a collage of pictures of him with Buba and Patrick and Nico and Hamid, and all 4 of these guys are now playing in different European leagues. And he said, "Dad, could we take this collage and make a copy of it at Kinko's, because I want to hang it on my wall?" Because you see, for this little soccer player, this collage, this picture of these 4 guys that are far down the road from where he is as an athlete, is an example of, this is who I want to be as an athlete when I grow up. And friends, in the same way, Psalm 1 paints in front of us a picture of the human life, saying, live into this. Do you want to live life that is flourishing, that is alive and pulsating before the Lord? Well, look at it. And it begins by painting 2 different aspects. First of all, it paints by telling us what this life is not. There's a story told of the famous Italian violin player by the name of Niccolò Paganini. Paganini was incredible. He was unrivaled all over Europe, but he also was widely hated. So during one of the performances, some of his enemies, they pre-cut some of the strings on his violin, and supposedly as he played his violin, the strings kept popping, and he finished his virtuoso performance with just 1 string. When they asked him how he got to this level, he said, the answer is simple: planned neglect. In essence, what Paganini was saying, in order to get to this place, I had to say no to certain things. And in the same way, Psalm 1 says, if you want to live into the kind of a life that is flourishing before the Lord, you have to say no to certain things. And he gives us this progression of what this blessed life is not. And he gives us this progression. He says that this blessed person, the person who is flourishing before the Lord, he does not walk in the way of the wicked. He does not stand in the place of sinners, and he doesn't sit in the seat of scoffers. Do you see that progression from walking to standing to sitting? And it's intentional there, because it begins by saying that blessed is the one who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. And when we think about the wicked, we think in terms of the moral terms, like, somebody who is morally deficient. Biblically speaking, Psalms tell us that the wicked say there is no God. You see, this is the path. The path of the wicked is the path of those who have rejected the counsel of God. You see, this is the way of saying if you want a life that is flourishing before God, you have to say no to the mode of existence that rejects God. Because if you go down this path, if you keep walking, and then eventually you will end up standing in the way of sinners. And again, when we think sinners, we think again just in the moral terms. But biblically, sinner is somebody who is missing the mark. In Judges, it describes the left-handed warriors who have missed the target. In Proverbs 19, verse 2, the same word describes somebody who leaves the house in a hurry and ends up being disoriented and gets lost. It's kind of like that episode of The Office where Michael and Dwight are going to the meeting and he's using his GPS, his Garmin, that gives him instructions, and eventually they get to this place where they're facing the lake, and the GPS positioning system is telling them to go forward, and Michael says, machine knows best, and he plows right into the lake. So in essence, this is what the psalmist is saying. If you walk down the path of rejecting God, if you go down to the mode of existence that is devoid of God, don't be surprised if you find yourself lost and disoriented in the world around you. And don't be surprised if eventually you end up sitting in a seat of scoffers. I mean, this is kind of like you have unpacked your bags, and this kind of mode of existence leads you to the cynical denial of anything and everything that God stands for. There is a fantastic little book that Alan Jacobs has written. It's called How to Think. And in this book, Alan Jacobs tells the story of Megan Phelps Roper, who is a granddaughter of the guy who started the Westboro Baptist Church. If you don't know Westboro Baptist Church, it's a very ultra-conservative church that is known for its staunch anti-Semitism and for vile statements against the LGBTQ community and for their picketing of the funerals of the fallen heroes and soldiers. And she was the granddaughter, and she has grown up going to this protest. She has grown up carrying the signs that says, God hates Jews or God hates gays. And now, as the third generation, it was her job to position Westboro Baptist on social media. So she starts engaging with people, spewing out all sorts of venom. And then something incredible happens. An ordinary, kind blogger who turns out to be a Jewish Marxist befriends her, builds relationship with her, and eventually things start to change. First, she stops spewing venom on social media. She still goes to those picketing and to those protests, but she stops carrying those dehumanizing signs. And next thing you know, she leaves Westboro Baptist Church and just recently wrote a memoir about her experience. Listen to what Alan Jacobs says. He says, to think independently of other human beings is impossible. Thinking is necessarily, thoroughly, and wonderfully social. Everything you think is in response to what someone else thought and said. Megan Phelps Roper didn't start thinking for herself. She started thinking with different people. And friends, right there is a challenge for you and I. Is a challenge of who are we thinking with? Who is resonated with our thinking? You see, it is really easy in this time of COVID-19, in this time of racial unrest and tensions, to kind of take the easy route and to say, well, I'm just not going to be a part of a small group of believers. I'm just not going to be engaging because I'm tired of Zoom. So, maybe I'll take a break from church or take a break from real life. And really what happens is we end up in our own little Minecraft world, completely isolated and devoid of people who can allow us, who can help us point in the light of this kind of a life that is flourishing before the Lord. You see, what psalmist is saying, there's certain things that we need to say no to, but then there's certain things that we have to say yes to. And this is where psalmist goes and he says, blessed is the one, ashrei, or how wonderful, how blessed, how encouraging, how rewarding is the life of someone who delights in the law of the Lord and who meditates on his law day and night. Who, this whole notion of delighting here, the Hebrew word chapetz means like this emotional attachment. Remember long time ago, back in the day when we used to meet in person for real life. Like we would meet at the Newport Music Hall, and inevitably, like there would be moments where, after real life is over, and you would find yourself standing with a piece of Brand's pepperoni pizza in one hand and Brand's bacon pizza in the other hand, but inevitably you would find yourself gravitating towards that cute girl from Smith Steve's small group. And as you are engaging in conversation with her, you would see those goosebumps going through your spine, and you weren't sure whether it was Brand's pizza or her presence, but that emotional response is what the psalmist is after here. He's saying, blessed is the one who finds delight in the words of God and in the things of God, who meditates on God's word day and night. And the Hebrew word for meditate there is chagah. It's, it describes this murmur. It's this low ruminating. In Isaiah chapter 31, verse 4, it describes the growling of the lion who is ready to devour his prey. You see, and I want to tell you a little bit of a story about my relationship with Laura. And when I tell you stories, as always, I like to remind you that you are on my side. In other words, you enter the story through my lens, and you are cheering for me. Anyway, one of the first dates, this is like 25 years ago, when Laura was coming to visit me and we had just started dating. My thinking is I want to take her out to eat. And, in my head back then, and maybe in some ways till now, the best place to eat is a place where the large quantity of food meets low cost. And that intersection for me was at the TJ's Country Place. We have a picture of that for you. And TJ's Country Place had this phenomenal object. It's called the Barnyard Buster. For $5, you would get 2 biscuits that will top with potatoes, and then they will put a whole bunch of bacon over it, and then they will smother it with sausage gravy. When you ate this thing, you should not have been allowed to drive. And if you drove after eating this, you should have been pulled over, because there's no way you would not have been in a food coma. But this is enormous amount of food. And I remember, like when Laura came, me taking her to this place, and it's kind of one of those places, the early 90s, so there is still people allowed to smoke inside. So you have the smoking section and non-smoking section. And really what separates a smoking section from a non-smoking section is a little railing. So there we go, and I'm kind of bust the doors open, invite her to my favorite place, we sit down, and literally this is like a moot trough. And we've got these 6 construction workers on a break on the other side of this railing, smoking. And that was my wonderful experience. Fast forward 20 years later, for our 20th anniversary dinner. You would think we'll be back at TJ's Country Place, but no. We were at the Refectory. Refectory is one of the finest restaurants in Columbus. And you see the picture of what I had on that day. And I have to take my time and slowly read the description, what I was consuming that you are seeing right now. I had Texas quail and Scottish salmon duet with white truffle duxel and squash velouté with lobster velvet sauce. 20-year anniversary. It was 5 years ago, and my mouth is still watering. What has happened? What happened in between those 2 experiences is 2 decades of living with one of the most exquisite, high-class human beings on this planet called Laura Borgiazzi. That's what happened. Being around her transformed not only how I see the world, but it completely changed my taste buds. And this is what Psalmist is saying. If you go down the path of God, if you say no to these things, but instead you choose the things of God, don't be surprised if suddenly your taste, your outlook on life is getting radically transformed. And listen to John Piper, who challenges us with his words. He says, the greatest enemy of hunger for God is not poison, but apple pie. It's not the banquet of the wicked that dulls our appetite for heaven, but the endless nibbling at the table of the world. And friends, we have to admit that many of us, in the midst of this COVID, in the midst of this isolation, we have been nibbling at the table of the world. And because of that, our taste buds for the things of God have dulled. And friends, this is a fresh invitation for you and I to say, re-engage back with God, with His community, with His kingdom, with His scriptures, and find your taste buds coming alive again. And when we do that, we get to this magnificent picture that Psalmist paints for us. He says, blessed is the one who goes down the path of God, because he will be like the tree planted by the streams of water. And he contrasts that existence with the common chaff. You see, he will not be like chaff. And the idea of a chaff is it's that agrarian waste. You see, in antiquity, what would happen is that a farmer would wait for a windy day in order to separate the wheat from the chaff. And what he will do, and you have a picture of this, is that he will just throw the wheat with chaff up in the air and then watch the wind blow the chaff away. He said, this is the outcome of the ways of the wicked. This is where that path of the wicked is leading you. But the way of God leads you to being a tree that is firmly planted by the streams of water. You see, and the key depiction here is that this tree is planted. And the Hebrew language of shatal there is not just planted, but it's being replanted. It's a tree that was somewhere before, but then it's been taken with its root system and it's been planted by the streams of waters. And the streams of water are not just random, but rather, peleg means the irrigation canals, that there was a thought put into it in order to create this system of watering this tree so that it has lavishness, so it has fruitfulness, so it has leafiness with it that comes because the Lord knows the ways of the righteous. So the knowing there, the language, the Hebrew language is yada, which means it's an intimate, personal knowing that when we unpack our bags with God, He steps in and takes responsibility for that kind of life. And He says, now I know what I need to do in order to bring you to the place of flourishing. And friends, let me end with this. I know from personal experience the outcome of this kind of existence. You see, most of you know that I'm an avid indoorsman, which means I rarely traffic outside. But when I go out, I'll cause all kinds of trouble. You see, early on in our marriage, I remember Laura had, we were, I think we were pregnant with Danny, and Laura had planted this beautiful garden in front of our house. And, as she's getting bigger and things are getting harder, I said, well, I'll take care of our front yard. I will cut the lawn. So I'm cutting the lawn, and then she looks out and she says, hey, can you run out to the store and to Strader's, and can you grab some Weed Be Gone to spray the weeds? So I did. I go to Strader's, I pick up the biggest bottle of Weed Be Gone I can find. I come home, and as a good husband, I touch the hose to it, and I start going after all the weeds that are in our front lawn. And as I'm going after these weeds in our front lawn, I thought, okay, it's killing the weeds that are here. But there is no guarantee that these will be the only weeds that will come up. Eventually, it's bound that their cousins and their relatives and their friends will come and they will take over our front lawn again. So I'm thinking, like, if it's going to kill the weeds that are here, it's probably, if I have enough of a weed be gone here, it would kill the weeds that will come eventually. So next thing you know, I start spraying the Laura's flowers, just kind of hosing them down, just washing them down, like gently covering them with this weed be gone. And then, there was this tree, that little maple tree that Paul, our son, had kind of taken from the seed and has grown into this little tree that is barely standing there. And it's starting to grow. And I'm thinking, for sure, if there's one thing in this front lawn that I want to protect, it would be Paul's precious tree. So I literally go up and down, up and down. I'm spraying this maple tree, covering in this protective layer of weed be gone. And several days later, my wife walks outside and she says, "What happened to my flowers?" Because you see, when I stepped out and looked at what had happened, I realized that I had just committed an agrarian massacre. I mean, every single flower has wilted and had died. The only thing that was standing and barely surviving was this tiny little maple tree. And friends, fast forward many years later, here's a picture of you, of that beautiful tree that has withstood that kind of agrarian assault and survived because it has been planted in rich soil. And friends, this is what Psalmist is saying, that when you are unpacking your bags, when you surrender yourself to God, and when your heart engages with the things of God, when the storms of life come, when the weed be gone is spraying your entire existence, there is assurance from the Lord that you will be sustained. So friends, as we transition to the time of worship, I have a couple of questions for you to ponder. And the questions are these. First, what do I need to say no to in order to live into the picture of the luxuriant tree planted by the streams of water? And the second question is, what might saying yes to the picture of the luxuriant tree planted by the streams of water imply for me in this semester?
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Oh. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are. Fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
Chris, Sydney, thank you so much for leading us in that time of worship. I love that song. I feel like every time I hear it, I don't even know what. I just absolutely love that song. So thank you so much for leading us in that time. Before we head out here, just a couple more announcements, a couple more reminders. Don't forget about Winter Conference. That's February 5th and 6th. And if you want that amazing swag box before Winter Conference starts, be sure that you go ahead and register before the end of tomorrow. So just go ahead and do it right now, because I know you're probably going to forget. So be sure, check that out. You don't want to miss out. Also, we just want to throw in a quick plug for small groups. If you want to get connected to a small group, go ahead and check our website or fill out a survey. We can get you plugged in. I lead with Sade, who shared her story tonight, and a couple other girls on West Campus. So if you're in Lincoln Tower or Morrill Tower, go ahead and I don't know, drop a message in the group chat or something, or in the chat for our stream tonight. We would love to get you plugged in. If you want to be a part of a small group, be sure to check that out. We would love to have you. And as promised, we have our winner for tonight's drawing. The $10 Amazon gift card is going to Sarah Freeman. So congratulations, Sarah. We will make sure that we get that to you. Spend it wisely. That's all we have for you tonight, guys. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Way to get the semester kicked off. And we're just really excited to keep going through this series together. And so, that's all we have. Remember that you are loved, and we will see you right back here next week, guys.